catch up to where you were because everyone else that stayed on the track is moving ahead as well. So you're not only catching up to your prior position, you're catching up to that new position that everyone else is in. Other than that, Turkey, Indonesia, et cetera, absolutely would be on that next tier below the BRICS. And in fact, if you looked at my list of the 11 through 20, you would have seen all but Venezuela of the list of countries that you otherwise gave. But I think instead of Venezuela there, I would add Mexico. It is the Mexican economy that I think is poised for a major breakout. The challenge, however, in Mexico, of course, is that we've taken this detour largely because we are a major supplier of drugs to the very high demand for those drugs in the United States. And that has attendant problems to it that may sidetrack what is otherwise a very successful, a success story when it comes to economic growth. I think we're at a very good tipping point, and it's hard to know where the outcome of that will be.
Gemma?
Thank you. In your talks, it's clear to us that you have relied on the conventional GDP to reflect the wealth of world as well as the recovery trajectory of countries. With this, I have two questions. First, is it that GDP would be superior to some other measures like green savings, the genuine savings, as allocated by World Bank, superior in the sense of practicalness or conceptual from your perspective? And number two, if you had used genuine savings instead of GDP, do you think the recovery trajectory would be the same? And the names in the top 20 list or top 10 list would still be the same? I wonder what your thoughts are.
First on metrics. There's a saying we often use in English, which says there are lies, damn lies, in statistics. Every metric both reveals and disguises. So even just the two simple ones I've chosen, where I look at GDP but simply change the exchange rate, you get very different stories. Every statistic both reveals and hides. So I just don't think in terms of superior or inferior metrics. I think in terms of what has been revealed by this particular metric and what am I not seeing that I should see. The metrics you're pointing to get on other aspects of not just economic but social and other activities. No idea what they would reveal. My own suspicion is that not on the top 10 but on the top 20, you would probably see a tremendous convergence around a variety of metrics. But it's only conjecture. I can't say that I've ever looked at it to know. To the extent that I've used, and these are metrics of convenience that I've shown here, when you look at other dimensions of economic activity, so I often, energy is a sector I spend a lot of time in, and when you start looking at energy consumption and alternative energy sources and a whole variety of those kinds of, what starts to jump out off the page at you is that the efficient use of energy is a very important metric for economic growth. To illustrate and then move on to another question, China this year will pass the United States in terms of absolute amount of energy consumption. It will do so in an economy that, depending upon which exchange rate you use, is either 1/3 or 1/2 the size of the United States. So it's spending, using roughly the same resources to produce anywhere from 1/2 to 1/3 of what the U.S. produces. That puts huge pressure on China to be more efficient in its use of energy, or to find a way to buy that energy more cheaply. The easiest way for China to buy energy more cheaply is to change the value of the renminbi. If it costs me 4 renminbi to buy $1 worth of oil, and I now make it 2 renminbi to buy $1 worth of oil. Remember, all oil is denominated in dollars. Just by appreciating my currency, I can dramatically alter the cost of that energy that I'm otherwise using very inefficiently. So that's why I know it's in China's best interest to appreciate the value of the renminbi. I know that I've been singularly unsuccessful in convincing my government to shut up because every time you tell someone to do something, I have little boys. Every time I tell them to do something, the probability they're going to do that is 0. So they will discover it in their own time and in their own way. But the point here is a simple one, is well, I'm guessing that the metrics would lead to different ordinal level rankings. My guess is the top 20 would share a lot in common across a variety of metrics. But it's only a guess.
So, you first. This press.
Okay, thank you. I will just pick up Walid Ahmed from Yemen, Bistari. Thank you for the interesting presentation. I will pick up on Dr. Othman's point, and I will move up to my question. My point is that looking at the current debate on the international global climate system, and maybe in the times to come, a new international climate change agreement will be taken soon, end of the year. So do you think the new patterns on the global GDP growth rates across the world will take the same way, or will have the climate change agreements has negative impact on the way that GDP growth across countries to take place? For example, productivity is one of the issues. Will climate change incentives help some countries to increase its GDP, or its productivity limitations will make it stay at the same point as it is? Thank you.
Well, yes, but I think you're going to see it in 2 realms. I think you're going to see it on the demand side, meaning there will be huge pressures as a result of this debate, whether it turns into an international agreement or not. I'd be less optimistic than you on that, but irrespective of that, there are going to be huge pressures on societies, polities, economies to treat scarce resources with appropriate prices. And what that means to me is we're going to see pressures to be far more efficient in our use. So our use on the demand side. There's another side to this that I think you're alluding to, which is some economies, be it the Chinese as they try to get invest more in solar and wind, or the Germans, or you're going to see on the supply side the growth of all sorts of industries, some obvious, solar, wind, some not so obvious, but hopefully major breakthroughs, batteries, ways of storing energy. On the supply side, that open up whole new sectors for these and other economies. So I think both on the demand side, on the efficiency side, and on the growth side, on the supply side of that equation, I think that this whole set of conversations around, I'll just lump them together and call them green issues, offers tremendous upside for the global economy. That said, let's understand that the adjustments in various economies could be very difficult. One of the reasons why that impedes the pressures to geographic dispersion of value-added activity, globalization, is the sheer fact that not all economies have the capabilities and competencies to respond in the same magnitude at the same pace. And so we can expect that some countries, some economies will be left behind. And that I think is good. That is true of every major change we've gone through, no less this one. So I say that just to sort of temper my optimism for the changes that might occur on the demand and the supply side.
Very good evening. I'm JR from the law faculty. Thank you. I thank you for the very informative and very interesting sharing. I'm very much agreeable with you that infrastructure is in fact so essential and crucial. And indeed, you say that it is the venture into the infrastructure that is driving China's economy forward, despite economic recession during 2008. For your information, our Prime Minister has in the 2011 budget disclosed that one of our biggest government company, as well as the biggest fund manager, is constructing a new 100-story tower now in the heart of Kuala Lumpur. Now, apart from this idea of constructing the 100-story tower, government is putting a lot of efforts, in particular to enhance public transportation, i.e. the mass rapid transit, high-speed train, and so on. Above all, our government is doing so much as to boost our economy as well as to bring in more foreign direct investment through the national key economic areas, economic transformation plan, new economic model, and so on. Now, from your point of view, what is the best approach to bring in and to attract more foreign direct investment, particularly in the developing nations? Thank you.
I used to do a lot of work for MIDA, as well as for provincial governments, most notably in Penang. There are three things I would say about attracting foreign investment. The first is to actually recognize what I think is obvious, but I'm always reminded is not so obvious, especially for government officials, which is that all governments are in intense competition with each other for a limited amount of capital at any point in time. So intergovernmental competition for, now fill in the blanks, in this instance, investment, is large, is intense, and is growing. So to just sort of state what I think is obvious, but nonetheless important. So that's point number two. That is competition not only for foreign direct investment, that is competition also for your own investment. Keeping opportunities for investment in your own economy by your own nationals is as important, nay, more important than attracting foreign investment. Now, a little footnote here. When I'm in Penang talking about foreign investment, that could mean investment from Johor Bahru. Right? It just means from outside of your borders. Why do I say that? I was born in the southern U.S. state of South Carolina, and we just attracted from the Boeing company. Boeing makes airplanes. Boeing is a company named after its share price. Boeing. Boeing is building, the world will now have 3 major assembly plants for wide-body aircraft. The 787 will be assembled in South Carolina. Intense competition, not only outside the United States, but also between South Carolina and the incumbent, Washington State, which is where Boeing has most of its assets, to bring this to South Carolina. So it's outside, and believe me, we thought of it in South Carolina as foreign investment. Yet it was U.S. investment throughout, but nonetheless foreign. But the second point here is that it's not just foreign direct investment. If I want to stimulate the small and medium-sized enterprises, which by the way is where all the jobs are anyway,